Christ is in our midst. Well, you're about to see one of two episodes that we're doing focusing on the occult. And this emphasis is a little different one than you're probably going to see in other places because these interviews are not a treatise on the occult per se. They're actually trying to dispel a lot of the ignorance and the glamour that people have around the topic of the occult. The occult is a very broad thing, and it's a spectrum. And it goes all the way from people practicing what we would call very high ceremonial magic, all the way to people being, in the New Age in a very commonplace street level. People are finding themselves involved in the academies on academic level and all the way through TikTok and Instagram. And so I wanted to take some time and hopefully offer this service to educate people about the reality of what the practice of occult knowledge brings to the human soul. What you're going to observe in the two interviews also is a spectrum. The first interview will have Sister Glykeria, who is one of my spiritual daughters, and she's a nun. And the second interview is going to have Michael, who is a catechumen. And they represent this kind of capstone, if you will, these endpoints, these bookends of what people's experience in the occult is. Everything, again, from Ouija boards and tarot on Instagram and other commonplace things like social media to Masonry and beyond. So I hope that you find these, enlightening. I hope that it opens some people's minds, especially those who maybe have loved ones who are involved in the occult and the New Age. And there will be something in particular that I'm going to point out in Sister Glykeria's interview, which I want everyone to understand, and that is this. We are talking about people, human souls, who have been in the grips of the devil and all of the traps, seduction, fear, despair, all of these things cause the human soul to be ensnared. And one of the things, and I think the most important thing for people to understand, is that when a person is ensnared in barbed wire, when they're ensnared in a thicket, you have to be very careful. You don't just rip someone away from that, because you can cause very serious damage. When someone's been wounded with a particular type of bullet or a barbed blade, the ripping out of that foreign object can often cause more damage. So you'll find that in Sister Glykeria telling her story of her coming out of the occult, and also Michael in his stage of being a catechumen, what I want people to understand is the need for patience and trusting and faith in Christ, because the idea of just, ripping something away and then just slapping on, a kind of Jesus Band-Aid doesn't work. People's personalities, they're kind of, the arc of their life is so enmeshed with these experiences that it takes time for someone to have these things untangled and then eventually brought to a place where they can willingly go to Christ, call on Christ, offer themselves to Christ. And so I say that because this is one of the key things I'm hoping people will understand from these interviews, is that the process of Christ restoring a soul is just that. It's a process. And the second thing that I think is really important is that we need greater education in the church. We need greater understanding of what people experience. And more importantly, we need greater education and training for clergy to really deal with these issues, because it isn't simply a matter of picking up the trebnik and saying a prayer. it's a much more involved process in regards of restoring someone to spiritual health and sanity once they've been deeply enmeshed into the occult. So I'm hoping that this will serve as a kind of a primer for further discussion, for further calls for actual training. None of the seminaries, none of the Orthodox seminaries in the country offer anything on the restoration of the human soul coming out of the occult, nor on dealing specifically with demonic influence. So I'm hoping to bring awareness, and this is my first attempt to do that. And this is also leading up into the conference that we're going to be having at the later in spring of this year, in the beginning of June, where we're going to be specifically seeking to address these issues. So please stay tuned for this conference that's going to be coming up in the beginning of June of 2026. And please stay tuned for further work trying to highlight and equip the people of God, because as it says in the Gospel of Mark, the Lord Jesus Christ came to undo the works of the devil.
Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her meat, and she has mixed her wine. She has also furnished her table. She has set out her bait. She cries out in the highest place of the city, whoever sees will let him turn and hear. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have made. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding.
Someone had told a story that was touching, and my mom started crying just because she has a loving heart, and she was moved and she started crying. And I said, oh, that's just like a cancer to start crying. You know, like I wasn't thinking at all about my mom or the story or what was going on. I was just like, oh, that proves something about astrology is true. So I was obsessed at just like validating.
Yeah. It's interesting to me because the depersonalization, the dehumanization of people, obviously, but even in regards of, this is also what I find funny, nature in of itself also becomes, an object, and the inability to break out of it in the sense of, seeing reality again. And because I say inability because, as you know, people can be locked into this for a long time. And, for everyone, it's a little bit different how they kind of step out of it. Because, like you said, when you start seeing people as objects, people are there to please me, to do my will, to entertain me. Everything's there about me. Like you become God. Like it's a self-idolization, a self-deification, and that is the most intoxicating thing, because everything you do, think, say, reinforces that. What is it for you, looking back now, that began to really get you to question the the nightmare, the dream that you were in regards of everything is, as you want it to be? What began to kind of crack that wall, put a crack in that wall for you?
It started shortly before I moved to Kansas City. I was dating a person who was definitely possessed, looking back. We had an experience of doing shrooms, and I saw him as he became transformed into like an evil sorcerer. Like I felt so much fear looking at him. I his whole appearance was totally different. And I saw a lot of other visions that night that were very terrifying. Like, I saw myself as Medusa, different things that were just like
horrific.
Yes. So I was, thinking this was supposed to be fun, but, even the tarot cards became like, I didn't want to touch them. I was afraid of them. My sister was there and she was afraid, and
hold on. So this is important, because your sister's there, and your sister has nothing to do with this, right?
Yes.
Did she know? Did she have any idea what you're doing or how deep you are with these things? Did she know?
I don't think she knew the extent, but she knew, probably a lot more than I thought she did at the time, because we lived together during that year. That was the year before I moved here. That was the lowest point. Yes, I remember her coming into my room, and I had kind of things arranged on the floor. I was doing a ritual that I didn't know the purpose of it. This was kind of how I lived my life, is the demons would tell me what to do, like go to the store, get this color of ribbon, very specific instructions, and I would just blindly follow it. So in my room I had all these objects, in a configuration, and she came in and she started to cry. She's very sensitive, and she just felt a lot of fear, and I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not doing witchcraft. I'm not doing anything." And I don't think I had even consciously thought of that word before to describe what I was doing, but it came
out.
Yeah, so I would obviously lie to her and try to hide it, but she knew, I'm smoking weed all the time, I'm angry and unpleasant, and yes.
Yeah, so she's experiencing, was it just simply she was experiencing the kind of the negativity of your disposition, being angry and all these things, or are you saying that she was actually experiencing something, for lack of a better word, like evil? Did she, was there another instance, or along with this instance, where she was becoming, or another loved one maybe, was privy to that whatever you're involved with, it isn't just you kind of being in a bad emotional state, that there's something more to that? Is that how you would characterize some of these experiences, or was it just simply being connected with your sister and she just sees that you're not as happy as you used to be?
No, she could definitely tell it was evil. Yes, there was another time. This was, years before that. So looking back, I think I had a lot of demonic influence even before this, just through the sin that I was engaging in. But I remember we were somewhere at night. We were at the gym, and she wanted to go home. I wanted to stay longer. It was like a very small, petty thing. But then I just kind of changed because I was irritated, and I just became different. And she started to cry. And we had a lot of moments like that where I lost control of myself. I stopped seeing her as my sister. I stopped treating her with love, and then she could sense that, and she would just, cry and be very afraid, and neither of us could explain what was going on.
This is so important, because one of the real problems with the kind of fascination now that people have with the occult is that even people, who are Christian, Orthodox, whatever, and they maybe will read books or they'll listen to things on it. From a Christian perspective, let's say, I want to watch a YouTube video on Exorcism or whatever. The problem is that they don't have the experience of actually coming from being involved with that, and they don't realize it, but there's a kind of sensationalism that they begin to characterize everything with. And they don't realize it, but subtly they start projecting, kind of fantastical and Hollywood experiences on the phenomena. Mm-hmm. And what they don't understand is why it's so dangerous is because the demons never want to do that unless they have to, because the subtlety in regards of separating people from their loved ones, separating people from God, taking over the psyche, taking over the inner faculties of the person, getting them into despair. These are the main things that they're interested in. Mm-hmm. And you don't ever really see those things if you're always looking for some sort of, sure, cups can fly, chairs can move, windows can break. Mm-hmm. All that stuff can happen, and it does. But long before that happens, that's what people don't understand. Long before those things begin to happen, someone is in a long state of absolute despair, and they have lost contact with God, and that actual darkness begins to actually shape and form them. Mm-hmm. And this is why those of us who have been in the occult, it's like we've talked about, and everyone who's been there, we all have the same experience. There's this like sliver of ice that gets kind of lodged in your heart for a long time. Mm-hmm. And despondency and depression and those things haunt you. Even you come to Christ and everything, there's still a period of time in which, and there's a scar that's always there. And that's one of the things I felt was really important to talk to you about today, because people's naive understanding of these things, I think, is so dangerous. And they don't understand that they oftentimes, they have to think that someone has to be, abducting children and drinking babies' blood for it to be serious. And it doesn't have to go anywhere near that. Mm-hmm. In order for someone's soul to be seriously damaged. Mm-hmm. And they're basically everything that connects them to God to be slowly cut away, I hope you've enjoyed the preview. Please consider joining the Synaxis of Sophia community on School. You're going to find the link in the description. And it's there that not only are you going to find the full length of this episode, but you'll find all the full-length episodes that we've released so far. Also here, you're going to have exclusive access to the content of my catechism, various lectures and teachings. There's community engagement on everything ranging from the saints to spiritual warfare to just the general life in the church. It's a place where people want to be there to encourage others and not to get into fruitless debates. So please, if you enjoyed this content, join the Synaxis of Sophia on School, link in the description, and we'll see you there.